this weekend's main event, Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson, may or may not happen. So, according to Ariel Helwani, it looks like Waterson has signed the fight. Rodriguez is all about the fight. There's no injury, no COVID, anything like that. But there's some logistics, which sounds like Rodriguez may have some trouble getting into the country. That short notice, she'd have to get a special visa, everything of that nature. And we still, technically, according to UFC.com, have TBD versus TBD. So let's go ahead and talk about this fight and hope that it is the main event, but we'll also break down the co-main and another fight we like as well. Start with, the fact that this is at 125, Matt, because Michelle Waterson was an atomweight for a lot of her career and then fought at strawweight because they don't have an atomweight in the UFC. She's now going up to flyweight. How badly is that going to hurt her here? I mean, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, it is crazy because that's one of the biggest things that we always point to when we see Michelle Waterson fight at strawweight is that she's undersized at strawweight. And yes, Marina Rodriguez is a former strawweight herself, or I guess former. I don't know if she's permanently moving up to flyweight, but she used to fight at 115 as well, but obviously a bigger frame than Michelle Waterson. Like I can't, like every time like we saw Michelle Waterson in the cage at 115, with the exception of just a handful of opponents, like everyone was always just talking about the size difference. Like, man, like, yeah, she can hit that head and arm throw or that, like nobody's business. But outside of that, like she has to do everything at range and, try to keep her opponents away from her to avoid the clinch for the most part, just because of the size difference, right? And I mean, you can still see it in some striking differences as well. Like the fight, obviously the big one was the fight against Joanna, which was just yikes for a lot of reasons. But, Michelle finds a way to make it work. That's why she's been in her position for so long. Getting wins in fights that some people didn't think she would get, Angela Hill fight, for example. I thought she was going to get outstruck in that. And, that was still a split decision, but, we won't go down that road right now, but she finds ways to make it work. Even being the smaller fighter more often than not. It's just going to be interesting to see how this one plays out if we actually do get there being at 125, because Marina Rodriguez, obviously she's not going to be cutting as much. And as we were kind of joking before we started recording, like we think Michelle has to bulk up to hit 115 on weigh-in day. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious as to what Michelle, if this fight does happen, what Michelle Waterson weighs in on Friday, because I have a feeling it's not going to be 125 on the dot or anywhere near close there. It could be 122, 121, something like that. And even then, is she putting on weight? Is she drinking a lot of water to hit that? Who knows? Because she's just so small, as you mentioned, compared to the other strawweights, that going up against Rodriguez, who is now going to have less of a weight cut, be a bigger frame, you got to wonder how this is going to play out. Now, I guess the one kind of thing that will help Waterson here is that Rodriguez is primarily a striker. And so you don't have to worry about a bigger, stronger girl going for takedowns and, kind of like throwing you to the ground a lot. That's not something that will probably happen here. But we also know that Rodriguez has knockout power. She knocked out Amanda Ribas in her last fight, which no one saw coming. Just big shot. It's hard for me not to think that she's not going to be able to rock or possibly put away Waterson, especially if she doesn't have to drain herself as much for a weight cut. Outside of that, though, I think Waterson's, striking is more technically sound, and she's got a lot of ways to win this if she's able to, basically take it to decision. Unfortunately, Waterson doesn't have, big knockout power, especially, again, as we talked about, given her size, but she, her striking is ridiculously good. As you mentioned in the Angela Hill fight, I thought Angela was going to be able to kind of take that wherever, especially since we've seen Angela's growth, and she's just really coming to her own lately with her Muay Thai and just fantastic output, volume, all of that. Michelle was able to go toe to toe with her the entire time. And it was a split decision, but it was close, right? It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't any, this is ridiculous. Michelle was throwing blow for blow there, and it was a really great fight. that is the one way I can see Michelle taking this victory, is just volume, getting in, getting out, striking from range, doing what she does best as the karate hottie, just coming in with those awkward strikes and then getting out of range before Rodriguez can land the big shots. That being said, Matt, what's your thought on this matchup in terms of, the technical aspects, and who do you have in the main event? If this does happen, do you have Rodriguez or Waterson?
Yeah, in TBD versus TBD, I have TBD in the Marina Rodriguez corner, actually, emerging victorious here. I think the size difference is going to come into play. And like you said, she's coming off a knockout win over a very highly touted opponent. I'm a huge fan of Michelle, and I hate to see her in bad matchups. I think this is just a bad matchup for her. She can win the fight, absolutely. Like, obviously, she wouldn't sign on the dotted line if she didn't believe she could. But I think if I had to pick a winner, I would think Rodriguez would come out on top of this one. But it'll still be a competitive fight. I don't think Michelle would get steamrolled by any means, just because she just doesn't do that. Like, pretty much all of her fights are decisions, close. She makes them close-ish most of the times. But I think it's one of those fights where Marina Rodriguez is just the bigger opponent, and she's just got a couple of more tools in the bag, I think, to take it home. Like you said, the knockout power is a huge one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this for my pick is going to come down to Michelle's chin, because if her chin holds up, I really do think she will throw more volume, and I think she'll be able to land more. And the last time we saw Michelle get finished again was, I believe, against Rose, where Rose was able to lock in a submission against her. What was that? 2 or 3 years ago now? A while ago. So if Michelle's chin holds up, I could see her taking this, just because, again, she's got the volume. She really does. You look at Rodriguez's fights, and the most significant strike she's thrown, I think, is in the range of like 60 over 3 rounds, something like that. I could be wrong there, but maybe 60, possibly 80. I don't think she's ever come close to 100, anything like that. Waterson, on the other hand, has had some very high output affairs. The Angela Hill one, again, is a great example of that, but some other fights as well where she's just thrown nonstop. And I think that's a key to victory for Waterson here. That all being said, I also would have to lean Rodriguez here, and I would have to pick Rodriguez, because I think the size difference, I think especially if Rodriguez gets her in the clinch, right? If she's getting outstruck and then she's able to at least grab Waterson and kind of push her up against the fence, it's going to be very hard for Waterson to fight back when Rodriguez will most likely be the much stronger opponent. And so I think, Rodriguez can either grind her way out through the clinch work, or, again, big knockout powers, maybe stunner here or there. And if she's able to evade Waterson's strikes, then it's a no-brainer that Rodriguez is going to get this done. So I also am going Rodriguez if we get this fight. Now, if we don't get this fight, let's look to the co-main and one other one, because who knows? Wacky card. It's been crazy. So we'll look at a couple here. Let's look at what I assume will be the co-main in Donald Cerrone versus now Alex Morono. So the Great White is stepping in short notice to take on Cowboy. I like this as a last-minute replacement. I like it a lot more than Giga, because I'm pretty sure Giga's been, on the horn saying, yes, I want to fight Cerrone. And while that'd be a fun fight, I don't want to see Cowboy go out like that right now. So Morono versus Cowboy. How do you see this one going?
This is a tough one to pick, man. This is a real tough one to pick. Donald Cerrone hadn't won since 2019 in his fight against Ali Quinta. Man, it's a tough fight, because I think right now where both of these guys are in their careers, I think it's a very even matchup. I like what Alex Morono has been showing us, even that loss to Anthony Pettis. Especially, again, I'm a little biased here. Trains at Fortis, so what can I do? I can't hide the bias there a little bit. But Donald Cerrone is obviously on the back nine of his career. And when I say back nine, he's on the 18th hole walking up to the green. So it's interesting to see what he has left in the tank. It will be interesting to see what he has left in the tank, especially, like I said, 4 straight losses and no contest, and a grappling win over RDA last year. But it could be a very competitive fight, or it could be one that just gets where somebody catches, the other guy. Donald Cerrone has an extensive highlight reel of knockouts with just like explosive combinations. So he can catch anyone and anybody like at any time. I don't know if he still has that in his bag at this point. That's my concern. So in terms of picking a winner and how it would play out, I think Alex Morono, being the younger guy, being more motivated, I think at this point as well, would carry him to victory here.
So, yeah, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Cowboy's, prime is certainly behind him. He made a great last run at lightweight, right? He had that win over Iaquinta. He'd strung a couple together at lightweight after dropping back down. And then he ran into Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson and, whole bunch of... You end up fighting those guys, you're going to have a bad time in general, even in your prime. So, it is what it is. But when I look at this matchup, I go back to Cerrone's last fight against Nico Price, right? And I look at Morono's last couple matchups. So the thing is that while Cowboy is on the back 9, 18th hole or so, as you mentioned, he still, does have a lot of tricks in the bag. And I think in the Nico Price fight, that really shone through. At welterweight, Cerrone's chin is very hard to crack. I think Masvidal and Till are the only two that have been able to do it. No one else has really hurt Cerrone at welterweight. His chin really seems to be much better, which is good for him at this point in his career. And you look at that Price fight where he ate some giant shots from Nico Price, was able to walk through them, and then, towards the end of the fight, turned the tide, obviously went to a draw because of an eye poke, I believe. So there was a point taken there. So Nico would have won 29-28 otherwise. But the important thing to me is that Cerrone in round 3 and towards the end of round 2 was winning that fight. And the reason that I bring that up is he's still throwing at very high output. He had a very competitive fight against Anthony Pettis that a lot of people thought went his way. Pettis was able to kind of, not run circles around Morono, but clearly win against Morono on a full camp. And this is Morono coming off of 3 or 4 days notice. So I think all of those factors are going to add up for Morono, where full camp Morono versus Cerrone, I think it's a little bit closer, but I still think Cerrone has enough tricks in the bag. And with Morono kind of just taking this short notice to get in there, I'm worried about his cardio in round 2 and 3. And that's where Cerrone is just going to, light him up, is where I'm thinking this goes. So I have Cerrone on this one. I don't know that he'll get a finish because, as you mentioned, not sure he still has that power, but I think he's definitely going to get it from my perspective. I think that's a win for Cowboy.
Make very solid points. But what if Morono comes in with the game plan of Donald Cerrone is a slow starter? We got one round of cardio in us. Let's go get him right out of the gate. What if that's the game plan?
That's what Nico Price did. And he survived that. Nico Price threw the entire kitchen sink at him. So you know what you got to do, Alex? You got to throw the entire kitchen at Cerrone and see if you can crack his chin, which hasn't been done at 170 since Till. So it's going to be a little rough. But yeah, there you go. So that in mind, last thing we're going to do here is pick one fight we each like and break that down a little bit. So I'll let you do the honors because I know what you're going to go with, and I would go with it, but I'll let you take it first. So go ahead, sir.
Neal versus Neal obviously is the pick, right? This is the one that should probably be the main event if Jeff Neal wasn't coming off of a loss, if Neil Magny wasn't also coming off of a loss. This should be the main event because it's one of the most intriguing fights on the card. There's a couple of good ones as well. I'm sure you're going to pick a great one here in a second, but it's a fantastic fight at welterweight. And I wish it just was in a better slot than what it's at because it's currently the 4th fight on the docket on the main card, I think. But we'll see where it shakes out, actually, because different sites have the placement in different areas right now. So who knows where it actually ends up falling. But definitely should be main event. It's a fantastic fight.
Solid pick. Very solid pick. For me, I've got to go with Diego Ferra versus Gregor Gillespie. That fight to me is, a prospect. Just it's a great stylistic matchup. Both guys, Gillespie is coming back from his only loss in his career against Kevin Lee with that vicious head kick. Ferra had a split decision loss against, I believe, Dariush. Yes, fought Dariush again in a great fight. I mean, this should be a fantastic fight, or one of them's going out real quick. I could see it going either way. I could see Gregor, using his wrestling game to get Ferra down there and then just having his way with him. I could see Ferra using his wrestling game or his jiu-jitsu game to kind of keep Gillespie on his toes, and then landing the big shot and rocking Gillespie, putting him out of there. It is one of the best prospect fights that is going on and has been booked all year. I'm extremely excited about it. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to lean Gregor just because of that wrestling. If he's able to get Ferra down, I think it's a bad night for Ferra, and it's just going to be Gregor wrestling him all day. But I could see it going either way, and that's my pick. Who do you have, Neil versus Neil?
I have Neil. In EAL, as in the Jeff variety. I think he's going to go out there and really make up for that Stephen Thompson loss. Coach Safe, as far as I know, will be in his corner this time, which was a huge detriment to him in that last outing. Of course, you could say that Stephen Thompson could have won the fight regardless, but things would have definitely been different if Jeff had his coach in his corner, especially because a guy like Coach Safe is a super motivating coach. He gives fantastic technical advice throughout the fight as it goes on. So that is a huge component that was missing in his last outing. So that'll be remedied this time around. Neil Magny is going to make it really interesting because we all know Neil Magny. He's a fantastic fighter and he doesn't go out easy. So it's going to be a great fight, man.
Yeah, I agree. It should be a fantastic fight. And yeah, Safe in the corner is going to be a huge deal, as well as, a little bit more time between the congestive heart failure and his next fight. That's always that's always a plus.
Exactly. COVID wrecking bodies and everything.
So let us know.
Young people aren't supposed to get the vaccine, though.
Right.
Joe Rogan.
Right. That's, of course not. Let us know your picks for the 3-4 fights that we broke down. Let us know who you think is going to win the main event. Who do you think is going to be the main event? Is it going to be Michelle Waterson versus Marina Rodriguez? It's going to be Cerrone versus Morono, Neil versus Neil. I think it could be any one of those three. Let us know your thoughts on that all. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification, and till this weekend's fights, let's just hope they're bangers.